Problematic Woman, a show that showcases strong conservative women, current events, and the hypocrisy of the so-called feminist movement. With me today is Beverly Hallberg, who is the president of District Media Group. Bev, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about, of course, we're going to go through our segment of real or fake news, where you're going to guess which of the headlines are real, which
I'm
ones
really
are fake.
bad at it, by the way. I did very poorly the last time.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. All news is fake news at this point, right? Okay. And then we're going to talk about how Down syndrome babies are being targeted in the womb in Iceland. And then we are going to crown our Problematic Woman of the Week. For our first segment, called That Happened, we're going to talk about the fact that Iceland is boasting that it has almost eradicated Down syndrome through abortion. A CBS News report says prenatal screening tests were introduced in Iceland in the early 2000s. The vast majority of women, close to 100%, who receive a positive test for Down syndrome terminated their pregnancy. While the tests are optional, the government states that all expectant mothers must be informed about the availability of screening tests, which reveal the likelihood of a child being born with Down syndrome. Around 80 to 85% of pregnant women choose to take the prenatal screening test, according to a hospital in Iceland. So what are your thoughts about all of this?
With this story, I would say, first of all, I'm pretty aware of abortion rates for Down syndrome in that I do have a cousin who has Down syndrome. So David Hallberg, one of my favorite people in the world, has Down. So I've been very aware of and really saddened by the fact that so many people do look as someone who has Down syndrome as somebody who they wouldn't want to bring into this world. I was surprised that Iceland was as high as what it was, that we're talking about 100%. I think the United States is around 75%. So we're not at that level yet, or a little bit lower than 75%. But here's the real shame of it all is, we can get into why I think this is concerning for a variety of reasons, but it is then not even being able to experience how wonderful people with Down syndrome are, that they're valuable people who have dignity, people that we should respect. And I would say to make any type of determination that these people shouldn't live is problematic for so many reasons. So I find it deeply concerning because I know I personally have been blessed not only by knowing my cousin, but also participating in Special Olympics over the years and working with many people with disabilities, including those with Down syndrome. And I would say it made me a better person by interacting with those who do have disabilities.
Yeah, and what role do you think the government plays in all of this in terms of mandating that doctors provide this screening and tell women whether or not this is happening? Do you think that the government has a role in kind of pushing for that high statistic of almost 100% abortion rate among women who test positive?
And they said it almost with pride, like, look, we have solved the Down syndrome problem.
Yeah.
It's like, well, by solving, you're just killing them. Is that your definition of solving? But something that the Federalist and also the Daily Signal have written quite a bit about is even the story of Charlie Gard, of course, the baby in the UK where the parents wanted him to get health care elsewhere. I worry that when you have this situation where the government or even the medical profession is encouraging you to have an abortion, where does this lead when there is universal medicine, universal health care? Are we going to get to the point, whether it's with physician-assisted suicide or it is with people with disabilities who are unborn, where the government's going to come in, not just suggest it, but make you do it. Now, some would say we're very far from that in the United States, but I do think it starts with not showing that all people have dignity. So I would say, looking at this story, it's really concerning that we're going to be dictating who has value and who doesn't.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that, you know, the United States has a high abortion rate of Down syndrome babies as well. What can we do to change the conversation about these individuals and affirm that, you know, all humans are valuable?
I think, first of all, when we think about somebody with disabilities, it can be a little bit scary if you've never interacted with them. It's like, okay, how do I start a conversation? What if this was my child? What would the cost be for healthcare? What is it going to mean long term? So I understand there being some fear of the unknown. But what I will say is encourage people as best as possible to interact with those who do have disabilities, those with Down syndrome, because once you do, you just see the person for who they are. And that's why I feel so fortunate and blessed in many ways in life, but the fact that I did have a family member who has Down syndrome, so I was able to see firsthand that this person is made in the image of God. This is something that God designed, and he's wonderful as is and has a lot of value. He has a job, he works full time, and brings a lot of joy to other people. So I have a feeling when you know people with disabilities and you see the value they bring, it changes your perspective. So as Iceland and other countries, including the United States, do have these higher rates of abortion for those with disabilities, more and more it's going to be stigmatized. Like, it's that thing you don't want to interact with. It's this fear of the unknown. When it's around you, it's not unknown anymore.
Very well put. And so for our next segment, let's get into real or fake news. So I'll read some headlines. You guess if it's real or fake, and then I'll let you know how you did.
All right, sounds good.
So headline number 1, college provides a safe space for fat identified LGBT students. Is that real or fake?
I'm gonna say it's true. It's real.
You're right.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes. Yeah. So that's from Campus Reform, and you can check out that article over there. Okay,
because anything goes on campuses these days, so that's why it seems real, right?
Yeah, you can. That's fair. Yeah. I also, the part where it's like fat identified LGBT students, that also seems rather interesting to me. I don't really know what that means. Anyway.
Well, it also fits into this idea of not just seeing a person as a person, but now there's another descriptor, which is fat or skinny, and I would think that we wouldn't want that. You're just a person.
Yeah. Also,
that.
relegating yourself to a different part of campus seems really odd also.
Yes.
Okay, so headline number 2, if you're married to a Trump supporter, divorce them.
Well, I know there was somebody who got a divorce over this, so I'm going to say true.
Yeah. Ding, ding. Yeah, Harper's Bazaar supports Donald Trump. Okay, headline number 3. Top CNN anonymous source revealed to be local barista. True or fake?
I'm just going to say true. Let's just go with the true. False.
That one is actually false.
Okay.
And it comes, although it is a real article, but it comes from the Babylon Bee, which is a satirical news website. Yeah. Okay. Next one. IRS rehires. I'm sorry. They should be retired. But anyway, they rehired 213 employees ousted for falsifying documents, avoiding taxes, which is ironic because they work for the IRS.
Right.
And other offenses.
I don't put anything past the IRS, so I'm going to say that's real.
That's a good assumption.
Yeah.
And this comes from Daily Signal, our own site.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. I believe this is the last one. Austin City Council votes to remove all male statues from city property.
I was going on the theme of real, but I'm going to say this is fake because I think the story may be try to remove some historical statues, not necessarily male statues. So that could be where it could be fake.
Okay. You are fake, or you are right in that it is fake that they did not vote to do this. And speaking of statues, we are going to kick this off to a video that one of our own people over here at the Daily Signal put together in response to a lot of these calls for to rip down and tear down monuments honoring historical figures.
Mob rule is coming to America. Violent clashes erupted between Unite the Right protesters and so-called anti-fascist counter-protesters at the foot of a General Robert E. Lee statue designated for removal in Charlottesville, Virginia. An Ohio man associated with the white nationalist marchers rammed his car through a wave of people. He struck and killed 32-year-old Heather Heyer and has been charged with second-degree murder. I was in Charlottesville this weekend and had the chance to talk to some of the people living in and around the city. As a thunderstorm rolled in on Saturday evening, a waitress at a restaurant I ate at said, "Let's hope this washes the day away." A local gas station attendant told my wife, "These people from out of town, Nazis, Black Lives Matter, they're all hate groups to me." The overwhelming feeling I got was that the rioters who had descended upon their city didn't represent the community. What happened in this quaint Central Virginia town was ugly and shocking, but clearly wasn't the end of civil discord rocking American cities. Following the Charlottesville protests, a gathering of left-wing agitators marched down the streets of Durham, North Carolina to the county courthouse. The angry mass turned its fury on a Confederate statue dedicated to the boys who wore gray. They toppled the monument, cursing, spitting, and kicking the century-old bronze visage of a Southern soldier which lay crumpled on the ground. These were ugly scenes reminiscent of the French Revolution or the war in Iraq. but ones that will become increasingly common if tribal politics continue unchecked in this country. While many are calling for the removal of Confederate monuments en masse after these events, it must be remembered that American heroes like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington will also be put under the microscope and designated for destruction.
This week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week, and is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
This has already happened. In 2016, students protested references to Thomas Jefferson at the University of Virginia, the school he founded, because he had owned slaves. Of course, Jefferson is the author of the Declaration of Independence, whose ideas led to slavery being expelled from this nation forever. That didn't matter. Jefferson was politically incorrect and needed to be purged. Another protest gathered at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, demanding that a statue of racist Theodore Roosevelt be removed. The question is, where does this all end? It would be a mistake to give in to those who want to erase American history, or the thugs who want to promote lawlessness and sheer tribalism. American towns and cities are now increasingly being besieged by agitators who flaunt the law, direct their hate toward fellow citizens, and openly attack the critical principles at the heart of the American way of life. The narrative is increasingly, join us or be crushed. Abraham Lincoln once said that mob rule, if left unchecked, will continue to build step by step till all the walls erected for the defense of the persons and property of individuals are trodden down and disregarded. America's history is worth remembering and even celebrating. As Ronald Reagan said in his farewell address, it is important for informed patriots to stand up for the ideas that have made America great. Our history shouldn't be buried because a few evil men have twisted it to serve their causes. Nor should mob rule be allowed to fester and plunge communities into chaos.
So I do think that there is a point to be made about, addressing the issue of, okay, do we really want to memorialize people who fought to secede from the country and fought against the Confederacy and fought against our Union? So I think that, but I don't think that that's necessarily the conversation that's happening right now. And as Jarrett said, a number of cities, a number of activists in a number of cities, including Durham, including Los Angeles, including, Madison, Wisconsin, and I compiled a list recently, and I couldn't even keep up with the number of cities and the number of memorials that people were trying to tear down, including the Jefferson memorial that sits at the foot of the tidal basin. So I do think that, the conversation has gotten really out of control. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so we even played that clip prior to that in the video of President Trump saying, where does it end? And I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves, at the same time balancing the fact that there are people who are rightly upset for those who were slave owners that we do have memorials to. So I think there has to be a sensitivity to the fact that racism is a negative aspect of the founding of our country, and so we have to take that into account. But what I will say is that we need a conversation.
Right.
Whatever the decision is, the idea, as Jarrett said in that video, of mob rule, of mobs going and tearing down statues, is wrong on a variety of levels. First of all, we need to ask ourselves, as a country, what should we do about our foundings and our past when there are so many things that make America wonderful. The American dream, you think of Declaration of Independence, you even think of, we live in Washington, D.C., what would we call this city if we whitewashed everything in that sense? So it's a conversation that needs to be had. The main thing I would say about all of this is so concerning is the mob rule aspect, and people, because of heightened passions, going around and destroying statues is extremely concerning. And then it is my fear on the other side is when we see this and those who want those statues to remain, then they get upset about it. And then what is the response to that? So I really think that in this country, what we need is a tampering down of the emotions. There's going to be fringe elements on both sides. And the reasonable people of this country, which make up the vast majority.
Right, 62%, according to that recent poll, said that 62% think that the monument should stay in place.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. And I also think, too, it should be the cities deciding.
Right.
Sadly, many of these mobs are people being flown in from other places, not necessarily from that area. So let's have a conversation with people within the community. I mean, we have town halls that are very popular these days. Let's, go to the city council, figure it out. But I think it's a disturbing trend as a whole.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. And speaking of conversations, we're going to get to the problem-solving portion of the show in which we're going to solve this problem. And as a communications expert, you specialize in helping people get across their message and be precise and be nuanced and careful about that. And over the weekend, with the violence that we saw in Charlottesville, the president, many have said, was not very careful in his response to what happened there. So I wanted to go over and play some footage from the press briefing that he gave on Tuesday, and then we can talk about some of the things that he said and how he could have done a better job in terms of being clearer and more precise.
Get nice and easy. Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the facts. This event just happened. In fact, a lot of the event didn't even happen yet as we were speaking. This event just happened. Before I make a statement, I need the facts. So I don't want to rush into a statement. So making the statement when I made it was excellent. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt? So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute, I'm not finished. I'm not finished, fake news. That was a horrible day. You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also...
So something that stuck out to me in that exchange is when he talks about, oh, I didn't want to respond right away because I was waiting for all of the facts. That seems to be maybe a little bit off-brand for him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so one of the things we know about Donald Trump is he's a tell-it-like-it-is person. So he has no problem calling someone out on Twitter immediately before all the facts necessarily take place. So what I thought was odd is not only that he said that on Tuesday, but that he was saying it in reference to Saturday as well, that he just wanted to wait to get all the facts. That's just not his normal brand. So to me, that didn't add up. And then the other part that I think he really struggled with was the waffling. So there was the teleprompter read that came out on Monday. Many people thought that was fantastic, including myself, that how it was worded was done. It was done really well, how it should have been worded. He's read from the teleprompter. He didn't stray at all. And then on Tuesday, he talks about infrastructure. Apparently, from all reports, the staff had no idea he was going to take Q&A. He took Q&A and then went into, of course, the answers that we saw playing on repeat. So what it did was not only keep the narrative going, instead of talking about policy issues, but also it betrayed what he said the day before. So in my opinion, as someone who does want to show that he has a lot of strength, that he is the one making decisions, it made us all think, well, then who told you to say that yesterday?
Right.
So the waffling between the two. So I would say, first of all, he betrayed his brand and he wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
Those are two things.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving along. We are going to crown our Problematic Woman of the Week, which is the title of the show. And the reason why we call the show Problematic Woman, the reason why we like to crown a different woman as being problematic is because the left doesn't like it when women don't like to buy into their ideology. And they like to call women like us, who don't necessarily buy into everything that they're selling on the feminist side of the movement, they like to call us problematic. So we're just going to turn that, slur into a little bit of a badge of honor. And so every week...
And a graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And a fun little show.
Yeah.
So every week we have a problematic woman, and this week it is Patricia Heaton, who spoke out against that story that we talked about earlier that was going on in Iceland. She said, quote, in a tweet, "Iceland isn't actually eliminating Down syndrome. They're just killing everybody that has it. Big difference."
Well said.
Yeah.
And it was retweeted I don't know how many times, but you think of somebody who is in the spotlight, well known, willing to take that stand, big kudos to her. So a big problem to a lot of people, but a hero in my opinion.
Yeah,
love it.
Definitely so. And since it is Sunday, we always like to get to an uplifting video at the end of this show. So here's one of a young man who has overcome many obstacles in order to fulfill his dream of opening up his own restaurant.
I wake up at 5:30, get in the shower, do my morning routine, and go around 7 o'clock to come to work. I am so excited to go to work, so I do a dance off in the parking lot. It's a dance of magic. We serve breakfast, lunch, and hugs. The hugs are the best part. I am Tim Harris, and this is my place. Oh yeah. Hey guys, welcome to my place. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh. Those are the best part, buddy. I love you. Have you been here before?
No, I've never been here before.
Well, I'm Tim. I'm the owner. Tim's place is the special place to be at because it's run and operated by me. You guys are doing a great job back here. I love you guys. You guys are the best cooks ever. Since I was a kid, I wanted to own a restaurant, and I asked my dad to help me out. I'm very glad I did. Thank you, Dad. I love you so much.
I love you too, buddy. I'm very proud of you.
When he was about 14 years old, he told us that someday he was going to own a restaurant. After we all gulped and gasped, we began to take him seriously, and the result is history in the making.
They supported me so I can live up my dreams.
I'm amazingly proud of my brother. Just what he's accomplished in his lifetime. I mean, people can only dream, you know?
I love you, Mom.
I love you too, honey. As far as we know, we have not yet found another person with Down syndrome in this country that owns their own restaurant. We hope that other people will, though.
My favorite part of all is the people coming through that front door. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Sometimes customers get sad. I give them a hug and then they feel a lot better.
Oh, thank you, Tim.
The hugs are way more important than the food. The food is food, so. How about a double hug?
Yep, double hug.
Love you guys. I am a mean hugging machine. Oh yeah.
So let me get this straight. So
Yeah.
you're a restaurateur
Yes.
and
A Special Olympic athlete.
Special Olympic athlete, and you've
Yes.
won a gold medal.
I have won more medals than Michael Phelps. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I did not let my disability crush the dreams. With people with disabilities, they can do anything they set their minds to. We're special. We are a gift